Welcome back to our podcast, Occupational Therapy Lived and Practice. I'm Femi, as you all know. I have with me my very good friend, Kenny. During the last episode, we talked about our experience in Port Harcourt after we finished from Federal School of Occupational Therapy and our very first practice experience. And today we'll be going to Benin. Kenny.
Yes. Welcome, everybody. We will be talking about how we moved from Port Harcourt in River State to Benin City, Edo State in Nigeria. That is from an autism center therapist, occupational therapist, to a teaching hospital occupational therapist, which is a totally different ballgame. Just to talk a bit about why we needed to move, we felt like, when you're at a place for a while, and especially a specialist center, you don't feel what's it called? You don't feel the need to do anything anymore. Like, in terms of everything becomes routine for you and it becomes normal. And then you just wake up. This is what you've been doing for almost 2 years. But we also felt like, okay, it's time for us to challenge ourselves, right?
Yeah, and apart from the challenge, there is also very little prospect for growth in that specialist environment. And looking at what the teaching hospital had to offer, we know that there will be growth, there will be opportunity to expose yourself to more career choices, specialist areas, and which led us to, trying to search. And thanks to those who were already on the field. And so that was how we started planning our move. It wasn't really, I wouldn't say it was much of what we were looking up to until that opportunity came. That's why having meaningful association with people, having contact, not leaving your set, like I would say the people you school together, not just leaving them after school, still keeping in touch. That's what actually helped us in our case, because we were still in touch with the colleagues in Benin, Edo State back then. That was when we got the hint about the opportunity available in teaching hospital.
We did, and thanks to Shola Oloshunde at the time, now Mrs.
Emore.
She was there at the time, and she linked us up with that opportunity. And we were together back in FSOT, and we were in the same set. And we stayed with them when we went for the getting of the form, filling it, submitting it, and then doing the interview. We stayed with Mr. Vincent at the time as well. We did the interview, and then we left. We just were open and expecting. We couldn't tell the organization we were with at the time that we were even thinking of leaving at all, because they kind of relied on us, didn't they? We were, like we said, the professionals on ground in Cope. Only two people that actually have the theoretical knowledge in the center at the time, and they really based a lot of things on us. I was leading the cerebral palsy aspect of the center, while you were really a key figure in the autism side of things.
Yeah.
And then we were being kind of like used in terms of
assessment. Yeah, initial assessment. We almost became assessors. So every time a new child came to the center, they will, get us to do the initial assessment, make the treatment plan in accordance with the laid down treatment plan for the organization. It was things were working really fine at that point. We were making some more money.
Salary has been increased a little bit.
Yeah, you will say we were becoming more comfortable. And the fact that we were beginning to have our own set of people, cycle of friends, where we church people, the professional experience, everything was, getting really fine. And so it was really a very difficult choice to make at that time, parting with that life.
It was. I'm someone that don't really, when I'm comfortable, it takes me a bit to get comfortable and to adapt to things. But when I do, leaving that comfort is quite difficult because
That's
now
right.
you're also now moving on to another thing that you don't know what's happening. You don't know what will happen either way.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was really, really difficult. And when we got the call that we've been picked, it was ecstasy.
It took
It
about a
was magic.
year. I think, yeah, it took about a year before they finally called us after we submitted the form. We were almost giving up, after 1 year of submitting a form, nobody
Doing
would even
the
think about it. And then after the
yeah.
interview, they called us a year later.
hmm And it was surreal, and it was time to leave. And then we were thinking, how do we leave? Because we've seen experiences of people trying to leave at the time, and and how they probably were. It wasn't a pleasant experience to see when people that wanted to leave the
Yeah.
organization, and we thought, how do we live where in a situation where our salaries will not be held and or used against us to kind of like hold us down. We
Yeah.
didn't really have an official contract as well when it comes to employment at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
we didn't really have any guideline in terms of notice period or anything binding that says you need to. So
Mm-hmm.
and we were living together at the time, and we also have gotten a two-bedroom place in Benin.
Yeah.
So what we did was you had to go first
Yeah.
with all of the loads
Because
and
around
everything
that
that
time, you remember around that time I was unwell. So I
mm,
kind of called in sick and, I was home for like a couple of days. And from that sickness, I had to put all our loads together and, on my way to Benin while you
yeah,
remained.
I did because I also we were being paid cash at hand, didn't we? We got cash for our salaries, and I needed because mine was stolen and I haven't gotten mine, so I couldn't leave. I needed that money to start life in Benin,
Yeah.
and as soon as I got it, the next day, I'm off. It
Yeah.
was difficult, not necessarily about the organization, but it's about the bonds that were formed, but we were able to inform some certain people that we knew that will be able to keep the secret. It wasn't like some few patients that have developed some kind of really good bonds with and will understand our situation. But the majority that were not, it caught everyone unawares. And obviously it was because of a reason that we did it, because of we felt that we might have been subjected to if we had given prior notice.
That's
But
right.
that means that life now begins in Benin, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So in Benin, well, it's a whole lot of experience because big, obviously, one of the biggest hospitals across the entire Nigeria, multi-specialist hospital where you have a lot of people, loads of knowledgeable people. And it was
Yeah,
we kind of knew what we were going into because that wouldn't be our first experience in Benin. Some of us had
no,
been there for our clinical placement, and we kind of know or knew the terrain. We knew what was going on there. But in terms of practice, independent practice, we we've not had such experience. But then we needed to move.
yeah, we
We've
did.
yeah we spoke about the scope of why we moved and what we were planning to do as regards our career choices or career development. But the expectation is not something we could really fathom at that time. But we,
No,
we moved anyway. So talking about the hospital structure, Kenny.
I mean, it's over 900 bedded hospital. It's looking at that hospital is massive. Is it housed so many great like departments where there's so many innovations going on. The surgeons or the medical personnel are topmost in Nigeria, like in the neurosurgery. And you look at these other aspects of the department where they are like number one, number two back in Nigeria. And then you look at it and be like, wow, that is a lot. And then we worked into the occupational therapy department. And it was this massive. building, and you look at it and be like, okay, is this what have I gotten myself into? Because it was huge. It was different from when you came for placement, where you was
It was a
in a
tiny department where we focused mainly on mental health at that time. We have the mental health patient coming in daily. It wasn't much of this multi-specialty as we had it when we moved in, because obviously when we got in UBTH, it was like we had, I think, about 6 units in the department.
yeah.
Stroke, we have that we call it not stroke, we call it neuromedicine. Then we have neurosurgery, we have hand injury on orthopedic, we have plastic surgery, the pediatric unit, and the emerging splinting department. That time it was just the locally made stuff that we were doing at that time, improvising what we could. It wasn't a fully developed splinting. It's more of, improvising hand splint for patient and all that.
We had a lot of as well, because obviously occupational therapy involved art and crafts, and we had a lot of other departments like the carpentry,
Yeah.
the printing.
Mm-hmm.
We also have the kitchen, the ADL
OT
kitchen.
kitchen. Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. And then that is where we fabricate a lot of things and rehabilitate a lot of patients. And that kind of like getting into that surrounding was for someone that has been in just pediatrics,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. And then you have been in a bubble, and all you eat, drink, think about is how to help those patients that you have, which is the pediatrics, which is the autism or autism spectrum disorders, as well as cerebral palsy or developmental milestone issues. And then you're not coming to this place where you have to treat different kinds of people, especially adults. Find it a bit more challenging in terms of the mental health aspect of it, because because it's a teaching hospital, it has all of this aspect of it all,
Yeah.
including the mental health side. And then because OT, the stereotypical thinking about OT at the time was also that our niche is more into mental health than physical health.
Mm.
And then we had to do that. I had to pull myself away from it a little bit.
Yeah.
But thanks to the people that were on ground, which was when we got in, it was Shola and then Mr. Vincent
Yeah.
only, wasn't it? Was there any
Yeah.
other
I
one
think
person?
we met a little bit of Mr. Elenyinde before
No, I don't. I think he left. He's left like a year before.
we got. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
Okay.
so. I
Yeah.
don't think it was when he returned that he met us in before we moved.
Right. Right. That's
Exactly.
correct.
So, but I think thanks to the people that we met on ground, where they were able to integrate us a lot more,
Yeah.
took their time for us
You
to.
remember the newly refurbished pediatric unit at that time? It was a different experience altogether for us, because
Absolutely.
then we began to understand what it means to practice in an environment where you have almost something close to the textbook format.
I mean, yeah, they've been able to, what's it called, locally sourced some certain things, fabricated things together with the carpentry side of things,
Mm-hmm.
used PVC pipes and all of this other stuff with paddings to make some certain splints that for us to be able to help clients.
Yeah,
And and seeing that was like a bit of mind blowing and also overwhelming, and just pushed you back a little bit and be like, I need to go back to the books. I
that's
need to
right.
go back to the theory. And then because you're attending those things that kind of like stood out initially was those ward rounds, going back again to ward rounds,
Mm-hmm.
attending ward rounds, clinics, and just having this multidisciplinary team around you. And
Yeah.
the culture in Nigeria where you have to know you have to know your onions.
Mm-hmm.
You can't wiggle your way around, because a majority of people, how they got what they got is because they're brainy.
Right.
They're really grounded.
Yeah.
So something that you need to know, if they tell you that this patient has got a T7 or a T5 spinal, T6, T12 spinal cord injury,
Hmm.
um, you should be able to know what that has resulted into.
Yeah, you can, you can relate directly with the functional deficit to expect in that regard. And,
Mm,
Benin now made us see OT practice differently from the
hmm
last 2 years experience we've had in Port Harcourt, where we begin to see acute setting for what acute setting really should be. The accident and
mm,
emergency, from there to all the neuro setting, the medical settings, the pediatric clinics. Began to see OT as a profession, not like, some center-based practice that is based on what the center wants you to do. But this time around now, you can make a decision about a patient, a clinical judgment about a patient, and then you know when to refer a patient or when to assess this or when to upgrade treatment. This decision now was lying solely on our chest to make. And as you said, thankful to those who were ahead of us, so we could follow in their footsteps. He made the journey, the transitioning, he made it very easy for us. And well, not in the absence of us trying to also put things together on our own, like going back to the textbooks and
hmm
also trying to understand what, because obviously the department had their own template of assessment that is completely different from the kind of assessment that we learned in the first 2 years of our practice. So it has to be a different learning curve for us at that point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, like I said, it takes you back to you making sure that theoretically you're grounded again. And
Yeah.
then it brought back all of the things that we learned back in school. And mind you, don't forget that in the Nigerian time, we were just diploma holders, but there was a lot expected from us because these diploma holders that were employed as assistants or technicians of the world back home in Nigeria had to lead it. We have to make this department that is big with different employees function
Yeah.
and generate revenue as much as it should to keep it functional, to keep it open,
Mm-hmm.
and to also keep it in rivalry with the sister profession at the time. And that's something that also kind of like when we moved to that, saw that rivalry between us and our sister profession.
Yep. Yep. So that rivalry kind of reshaped the way we were thinking about occupational therapy. We personally thought the visibility of our profession was poor at that time because of
hmm
very little advocacy, very little knowledge of our profession by others. So that kind of gave me a room to want to spread the gospel of OT even beyond the four corner of the hospital to the community.
Mm.
And I think one of the OT months, I think we celebrated one OT month at that time. I think World Occupational Therapy Day, where we had to go to different units in the hospital to talk to people. And at
The
that,
advocacy.
yes,
Yeah.
the advocacy. And I think I made a presentation to the neuro unit because then I was solely domiciled in the neurosurgical unit at that time. And you can imagine, I think it was about 34 bedded ward at that time.
Mm.
And, we had to see all manner, all grades of spinal cord injury, head injury. And this, at that time, you had to be up and running as a
Yeah.
therapist, even though you
Be-
looked at yourself as having limited knowledge in all these conditions. But, you are stimulated to continue to study. It was as if we were in school. And that's why we called it a teaching hospital. So we had to continue to study because you need to be at the top of the whole thing. You don't want to be seen as a weakling in the environment where we have people criticizing our practice and everything. But on a long run, it actually shaped who we eventually became. It pushed us to want to go further, which led to any other thing that happened thereafter.
I mean, it's also in the teaching hospital because you get to encounter a lot of different conditions, isn't it?
Yeah.
everything that you could think of, because it's a hospital setting. We're talking about the sickle cell, the people with children or adults with cancer, and how it has affected their daily and functional life. And then it also just opens you up to a different type of demographics compared to the one that we knew from our experience back in Port Harcourt at the time, where the people that are able to afford those type of centers were people with that had that financial background, and they had that financial means to send children to those type of centers. I think in the teaching hospital, you are able to see different people from different financial background, where they they wouldn't have had the opportunity to the center, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have been able to see them because obviously the hospital is subsidized
Mm.
for the public. And a lot of more people could afford to bring their kids. And then it just opens you up to different stories, different types of stories
Mm-hmm.
and that is another level of empathy, sir. That was another level of, it opened my eyes to another level of empathy, to just look at it and be like, those other people, you think, oh, they have the means, they have the financial, and then you're seeing this set of people that that sometimes have to give them some extra free sessions for them to be able to come up with the money for the next sessions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you get,
Yeah.
like, I remember then that we have this, what's it called? Appointment cards. When you pay, you get this appointment card that reads what, I don't know, 2014 appointments, whatever it is at the
Yeah.
time.
20
And
sessions.
then exactly when you come, it gets ticked. And when that is over, you need to pay to get a new appointment card to get.
Mm-hmm.
And then we know of some parents that, or clients that were, as soon as that is over, they're unable to have been able to come up with the money for the
Enough
next
money.
appointment.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then to prevent them not coming, to prevent the fact that we know that if they miss few sessions, the impact will be really devastating. The conditioning, regression will be massive. You're able to be like, okay, we give you these sessions, you can come in the next couple by the time, so that you can come up with the money to pay for the next appointment cards.
Yeah.
And that kind of just open your mind to this level of empathy
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm. And
that is
again,
something.
the empathy is not just to the children alone, even to the people in the ward area, because our previous experience, we didn't have any experience about acute setting as acute setting should be. So at that time, seeing somebody, like for instance, somebody on a score traction, for instance, I saw some of those things during my our student years, our clinical placement years, but it wasn't a situation where I had to interact directly with the patient, where I had to mobilize this patient, help patient after their 50 or 45 days of score traction to get them to sit, dealing with all the things that surround just mobilizing for the first time, passing out from postural hypotension, and things like that. It was kind of very overwhelming at first. You remember we were going from the department after finishing with the pediatric session in the morning. All of us will gather ourselves and then we'll go to the
Neuro
ward
aspect of it
neuro
as well.
aspect in the
Yeah.
afternoon. And, that was how we were running it until much later. Apart from the overwhelming aspect, I would say I enjoyed it because it was challenging and it was at the same time rewarding because you could see the outcome of what you were doing. You could see the impact you are making in people, how appreciative the people you are treating are towards the level of knowledge you are showcasing in what you do.
I mean, there's a lot of success stories that pops in my head. There's a lot of people that they the level of respect that this client of ours poured to medical professionals cannot be overstated, because you see people. obviously they feel like they're at your mercy. You are like the only one that is able to help deal with this issue that they have. But at the same time, it's just the fact that all of this burden, so to speak, is on them. They're trying to, whether a physical adult situation where they've got either bones injury or orthopedic issues or neuro issues, and then going down to pediatrics. You see how, even in the face of very minimal progress, appreciative they are. And
Mm-hmm.
I can, and that also kind of like speaks to when we do private practice
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
back in Benin, where you are able to move from. I remember a particular child where I was able to take in my time there, I was able to take from not able to walk to being able to walk to be practicing the stairs, being
Mm-hmm.
able to start school, help with how he's going to um, adapt his school work, to learn how to do helping out in the house, like washing dishes
Yeah.
and then bathing himself and all of that. And then you just think about that and be like, well, your impact is felt in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. And
And
for
there's a
me,
possibility that if you didn't, if you weren't there or if
mm,
you didn't encounter that, that child might not have achieved those milestones either
that's right.
as early as or probably achieved it at all.
That's right.
Um, and those are something that I take with me till this day.
Yeah. 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 For me, I didn't stop my connection with Port Harcourt.
Yeah, you didn't.
Getting into Benin, I will still travel about 4 hours every weekend to visit one of the children from my previous private practice in Port Harcourt. It was really rewarding seeing this child grow, learning to even chew. Swallowing was difficult, and we had to, teach the parent the positioning for appropriate positioning for swallowing, for drinking. Even at night, the bed had to be modified in a way that they would not have sleep apnea at night. And I mean, it was a lot of things. At some point, it was as if I was hooked to the practice, especially with children with cerebral palsy. It was really a lovely experience, I must say. Yeah.
I mean, it's just to also look at practicing in that teaching hospital environment. Just it stimulates you. Being around all of those multidisciplinary team, mm, whether it's the doctors, the physiotherapists, everyone, nurses that seem to understand everything they're doing. You can't go there and be not know what you're doing,
Hmm.
especially theoretical aspect of it. And that sent me back to going back to those books learned from FSOT.
Yeah.
Trying to it now became a bit easier. You know, when you're not studying to pass exam and you're just studying because you want
To
to
know
know,
more. Yes.
it's totally different. You are able to assimilate, understand,
Yes.
and especially you're able to marry it with what you see
Hmm.
um in the field when
Yeah.
you're practicing. Is it just feels seamless. And I think also just being around those where when I mentioned that there was that rivalry between OTPT, where obviously physios are trying to kind of like dictate what OTs can or can't do,
Mm.
um, or when the doctors should refer to OT. Is just to look at that, and then you just look at you want to rival with this majority of people are having degrees, masters. Some are already doing their doctorate, and you're just a diploma holder. And that is a huge gap when it comes to the Nigeria
Mm.
education system.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that just also stimulated something in us, didn't it?
That you have to go extra miles and to be able to show yourself approved. Yeah.
True.
So
True.
so if you are early in your career, I would say that if you are very early in your career, don't don't rush, because you have time to adapt, you have time to adjust like we did. When we
Yeah.
started, we didn't
Yeah.
rush. we
Yes.
felt like we had the time, and always go back to your book. They are there to guide you.
Yeah.
And now, thankfully, we have us with this wealth of experience to also guide you if you are just coming up. We are open. You can reach us on social media through this podcast. You can also comment your experience. Let's have a chat. We are all here to help each other. That's why we say do not rush too early.
Yeah. No, don't. It's just to say that where we started, which is it laid the foundation for us. Port Harcourt kind of like shaped our empathetic practice and formed our leadership because we were there. We had no one to kind of like relate in terms of professionally
Mm-hmm.
and our OT. We had to carve a way for ourselves and try and, but coming to the teaching hospital, obviously, we needed to learn how to follow as well because we had people that were senior to us
Mm.
that were teaching us, leading us on how to go. We really, really helped us. It took that weight off of us and just helped us to kind of settle in properly and then dived into when we were now ready to lead, we were given the position to do opportunity to do so. And I
Yeah.
think that's what he shaped us as a clinical OT per se in teaching hospital. And I
Yeah.
think that's being around those MDT kind of like stimulated something in us where we needed to now be like, okay, we can't sit on just diploma.
And we have to move on.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
we did
So,
have to move on.
and this then takes us to the next episode where we'll be talking about when our journey took us beyond Nigeria. That is where we had to advance our career and all the way to a different country, a different continent, and a different culture. So that's where we go in the next episode, ladies and gentlemen. And
Yeah.
based on that, we say, see you next time.
And thank you
Thank
for
you,
all the love and support.
and bye for now.